panel discussions ahead. The next panel discussion, ladies and gentlemen, the topic is about SME growth and funding challenges. For this, may I please request our moderator, Mr. Rakesh, CEO, Sidana, Mr. Prashant Narang,
Yeah, hi everyone. Yeah, hi everyone. Yeah, I think the previous session was great, right? I can so how this India is shaping up for the growth. So I'm welcoming the panelists, right? I think I know most of them. So this is very interesting. I would say great, kind of a session. We are going to talk about growth, and we are going to talk about funding. तो जब इस तरह की इवेंट में मैं कभी जाता हूँ तो मुझे लगता है कि वी आर एक्चुअली सेलिब्रेटिंग भारत टू बिकम डेवलप्ड कंट्री वी आर एक्चुअली सेलिब्रेटिंग एंड वी आर एक्चुअली ट्राइंग टू सी what kind of the challenges we still need to meet to become a developed country. So I think that is interesting, right? Or funding plays a bigger role. Funding हर किसी को चाहिए. So all SMEs, right? Everybody who is actually going to start their business, who's going to actually, start to have some innovations, right? Who's innovating, so they need funding. So funding is something required in every business. That is what we believe, right? So before starting, right, with the panelists, right, I would give you right some what exactly happening right in India. So India's MSME sector are nearly 63 million enterprises. So this sector contributes significantly to the country's economy, accounting for 30% of the GDP. SMEs are reshaping the country's economy, right? So I think with this, uh, the data and the notes, I'm going to start with a very positive note that how India is shining, right? So we have panelist Mr. Prashant Narang, founder Agility Ventures, CA with more than 2 decades of experience, and he has written a book, Four Bucket and Cash Flow. उसके बारे में बाद में बात करेंगे कि ये four buckets कौन सी हैं, right? And he runs many workshops, and the name of the workshop is Mind and Profit. Mind your profit. Mind your profit. So I think he is a CA, so I think I understand. He revolves around the profit only. Right. So with the introduction, right, I would be asking one questions to the panelists. So how India is shining, I think I'm asking from starting from you.
So, in my opinion, you know, the Indian business ecosystem, whether it is startups or SMEs, I mean, it is booming like never before. More and more people want to be entrepreneurs. They want to start their own ventures, and the ecosystem is becoming, I would say, supportive of that. Though it is a very, I mean, it's a long journey, I would say, still to go in terms of, having the right, uh, you can say, environment for a business to really prosper. But we are moving in the right direction. And that is where, we see that the number of startups and the number of SMEs that has gone up. I mean, SMEs today, you said 63 million, which is, 6.33 crores. Uh, I mean, if I
generating the employment opportunities. You can see so many founders are coming, the startups, and they are bringing the technology, they are bringing the innovation. You can see the Zomato. So there was basically the need of the Zomato. It is trying to solve the problem. I'm at home, I'm alone, and I want to order something. So for that, there's a Zomato and Swiggy. So basically, these people, evaluate the need. What's the need? So that's why we have,
Yeah.
111 unicorns in India.
Hmm.
And if you see the year 2021, 2000, yeah. So we had 45 unicorns. I think third largest in the world.
Hmm.
You can imagine. They are basically unicorn. वो बनता कैसे है? They are basically trying to solve the problem. Zepto का क्या हुआ? Zepto कहता है कि मैं आपको 10 मिनट में डिलीवरी दूंगा.
Hmm.
मैं अपनी नियर बाय शॉप पे जाता हूँ, आने जाने में 10 मिनट लग जाते हैं. कहते हैं यार कौन कौन जाएगा, कौन आएगा, Zepto से लेगा. Basically they have solved.
Hmm.
लोगों की जो letharginess है ना,
Hmm.
they are basically using that as a problem solutions. This is what I feel.
Yeah, rightly said, right? So I think next panelist, right, Dr. Vassundra, right? Interesting, right? She's director of India EU Trade Council. She's a global director, Indian Economy Trade Organizations, and she's investor, and she promotes national economy. So I think the first question I'm going to ask, like, how Indian economy is doing with the SMEs. So I think that is the first thing.
So I think we've been talking about this SME industry's quite a larger spectrum, right? If you could talk about the last 10 years back, because nobody knows what is about the SMEs, because there is no any awareness created even in the metropolitan cities, you know. And recently when I visited an IIT Kanpur, because there are a lot of IITians and even the college and the universities of students are like, they have become very smart brainy people. The startup enterprises is starting there itself at the time of college passed out, because they are inventing a lot of things, because they have an incubation center, because that is the one thing which we are promoting in every universities in the metropolitan cities, and even in the IITs, because the incubations which has started coming up when I was been studying, I might have done my engineering 15 years back or 2010, but these kind of incubation centers we have not seen that, because I think this is a kind of an development
Hmm.
which is adding to the Indian economy, which I think everyone need to do this kind of an advancement development, and research has to go into that, because why not the startup companies could contribute, because when 30% of the GDP growth of Indian economy is only from the startups, then the 70% goes with the other larger companies like Tatas and Ambanis and all. So lot of this make in India products and all came only because of the startup companies, because Modi ji's vision is basically make in India is only for the SMEs. It's not for the Tatas or Ambanis, because Tatas, Ambanis, they are already making it. They are already exporting their own. They have their largest spectrum in the worldwide. Okay, so Reliance have their market share in more in global than in India. I think we should accept this,
Yeah.
and all the top billionaires we talk about, even Asim Premji, because there are so many people, Wipro CEO, because they have already the presence in global, actually, whether you talk about US, UK or Europe market. But why this make in India concept comes from the public sector, because I am actually representing the foreign ministry, because I would like to add up more on that, because these kind of line of credit and then MSME, and then the MSME industry is getting promoted more in the public sector, only because we want our product to reach to global market, because that is very important, because as an Indian, because now you see, because the past discussion, the panel discussion, she was adding up like metropolitan people who born and brought up, these these guys and the students, they after finishing even right now they want to go and settle in abroad, even for the 12th standard, even for the higher grade. Why are you not studying here? Even the parents wanted their children to have a higher education in abroad. So we ourselves are pushing our economy, GDP, we are making it coming down. lower down, because we are just sitting here and talking about this one, but we want our children to go for abroad. No, no, I want my child to be in US and UK for higher education. So you are adding in more GDP. Already that's a developed country. Please understand, we are considering the US dollar as an international currency, and we're talking about the euro currency and UK dollars. How it has become an international currency? Why Indian rupee is not accepted? Sorry to say, I have just recently traveled to a country called Ghana. It's a very less populated country, and it is in Africa. Even the Indian rupee currency is not accepted there. Africa is poor, man. Even Africa is
Yeah.
poor. It's not something which, because the most of the 52 countries of the Africa, which depends on the economic growth of their interstate countries, they're dependent on Europe and China. Even they are not accepting our currency. Why? So this is the one thing which is a very critical thing that we need to talk about when you talk about economy. Economy is not that everything adding about economy, like you contribute something, you add GDP. It's not economy. You have to make it as an international economical country. We are still a diplomat country. We are still a democratic country. So when are we going to become a developed nation? US, UK, it's not a developed nation. When our currency is going to, we are going to the exchange, we are converting our currency into dollars and euro, and then we could able to travel. Why not? We should have our global currency actually at least to reach to the market of such kind of countries like Africa, Latin America, South American countries like Cuba, Mexico, like that. Even those countries are not accepting our currency. I think this is something to
Yeah,
be
so
taken
recently
it up. Yeah.
UPI has changed the way the transactions
Right.
can happen. Even at Dubai, right? UPI can be,
Correct.
transactions can be done through
This has
UPI.
also been talk actually. Sorry to add this point, because why this UPI and digital? Because Modi has started talking about that one. We have to make it as a digital India. So even right now, every Kirana shop, because they have a Paytm, they have a UPI transaction. Do you think that 10 years back we had that? We make it as very easy online communication, online transaction, because you don't need to carry the cash, because everybody will not be having a cash. Even when you go to rural areas, because we are making it as a mandatory that of course these people can also afford to have a UPI transaction, so we can able to buy anything in Kirana shops. But actually this would take some time, because it's not going to become an overnight bloom or something like miracles will happen. Miracles do happen only the thing when you join hands together. It's not that one government or one man's army here in India. We are just talking about that. So please don't blame any government. Today this government, tomorrow some other government. It's not, government cannot do anything until unless as a public we think about this and we join hands together and we do something to the society. Then the country would develop. I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
So coming back to right, so I think I would like to know what is the difference between startup and SME. That is very, I think, basic what we wanted to know.
So, I mean, this when the concept of startups started gaining popularity in India, that was after a prime minister, announced the startup, initiatives that the government is about to take in 2015. Before that, it was only a handful of startups that were registered as startups. Even if not registered, there were only few hundreds or thousands of startups that were there across India, and that too, you can say concentrated in major cities like Bangalore or Mumbai or Hyderabad, and not, across India. Even Delhi NCR, we could see the activity going up only after 2015. So, so when these startups started, then I would say uh, that is the point where we actually started seeing innovation happening in India at that scale. That people started thinking, you know, I would say, though Zomato was started in 2000, before 2010, uh, you know, so there were very few companies like that which had started then. I would say major startups like Zepto or the ones that Ankit mentioned, they've been started after 2015 because suddenly this activity, I would say, picked up after the government's focus on it. So what is the difference between a startup and a regular SME is a regular SME is not necessarily innovating anything. It is trying to manufacture something, provide a service, or do whatever, or trade something and fulfill an existing demand. So, and doing that effectively, if they're doing it effectively, they'll make profits. If they're not doing it effectively, maybe they are not able to make profits. Then that is the SME part, I would say, where there is no innovation, no uh, technology maybe being used that effectively. But when it comes to startup, it is primarily doing something which has not been done earlier. Using technology, you're trying to solve a problem. So I would say there are, if I can list down quickly, so there is first thing is innovation that distinguishes a startup and a SME. Second is use of technology. Third is scalability. Uh, because of the use of technology, there is scalability. A startup can scale its operations to pan India very fast because it is using technology, whereas a SME might not be able to scale, to you can say pan India because they are doing a lot of work which is manually, or they are restricted to a particular geography and they're not thinking how they can leverage technology to expand their business to pan India or even globally. So you can just imagine Zomato without the technology. When you're calling a call center to order food, it will be a big chaos. It will never scale up beyond a certain size. Uber, or Ola, you're booking a cab, calling a call center and not using the app and tracking the cab, real time. So that is where technology has enabled these startups to provide solutions which were never possible earlier and were never thought of also. As Ankit mentioned, they're trying to, fulfill an unmet need, I would say, an unmet need which probably the user also doesn't know that they need this kind of a service. And they spend a lot of time in and resources in altering customer behavior to accept this new solution. So that is where Zeptos and Zomatos, they all provided you services free of cost before they became your habit. Now even if Zomato charges a hefty convenience fee, or the prices are higher than the restaurant prices, but you're still okay because you're sitting in your, comfortable maybe sofa and you're just ordering food for your family. You don't want to take out the car and go to, the restaurant to get food. Even there is a price you are ready to pay for it. So startups would be doing something for the first time, using technology, something which is very scalable. And because of doing it for the first time, there is high level of uncertainty in startups. Whereas in SMEs, there is a certainty that अगर हमने अपना shop, open किया, एक restaurant open किया, या we are setting up a factory, there is a certain demand which is existing, which I will be able to cater. I just need to, get those orders or get people into my restaurant. But there is, a demand. So you will open a restaurant, maybe in a place like, Cyber Hub. There is so much of footfall that your restaurant, if the food quality is good, it will, have adequate demand. So there is a lack of, I would say, certainty, or there is high uncertainty in startups. Then startup founders, which I see as distinguished by SMEs, uh, that startup founders are so focused on the solution and so convinced that they are what they are trying to do. Their thought process is not limited by the resources that they have. They believe that they will attract all those resources, arrange all those resources that are required, whether it is capital, whether it is manpower, whether it is the technology. They will arrange everything and create, a company which is solving a problem. Whereas SMEs, they are always restricted by the thought that we are small businesses. I have, limited capital. I can only grow to the extent that, I have my real estate which I can put as collaterals and take loans, and I can grow to that extent only. Um, and because it's a small business, I will not be able to attract great talent. So all those restrictions are there in a SME, which, and still SMEs are doing well. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying as compared to a startup probably when it starts, it does not have anything. A SME would still have a, a basic capital which, is provided by the family, or, they have it themselves, that they will invest and they will start the business. But a startup, when it starts, probably it will not have any money, substantial money to start with. But we have seen companies scaling up on the startup side because they are able to get capital, from investors, because when they are doing something, so they people want to participate in, that, you can say, story, in that process. They want to make money. SMEs have never gone out to raise capital. That is also a point. They have never thought. If SMEs thought that, we will hold 100% of our enterprise, this is our baby. How can I share my baby with somebody? How can I make others participate as owners in my business? That has been a very restricted thought till few years back, I would say. Startups have really changed the way SMEs think. When people saw that, a startup was started 5 years back and it is now a unicorn, so people said, यार ये कल का startup आया, ये 5 साल इसने लगाया और ये आज 8,000 करोड़ की कंपनी बन गया. मैं 25 साल से काम कर रहा हूँ. आई हैव बीन अर्निंग प्रॉफिट्स. ये तो लॉस मेकिंग है, ये यूनिकॉर्न बन गया, तो मेरी कंपनी की वैल्यूएशन क्यों नहीं है? उसकी कंपनी की वैल्यूएशन इसलिए नहीं है कि उसने कभी इस पर्सपेक्टिव से सोचा ही नहीं कि एंटरप्राइज वैल्यू भी कोई चीज़ है. उसने ये सोचा नहीं कि आज मैं अगर प्रॉफिट्स पूरे दिखाता हूँ, कोई मैनिपुलेशन नहीं करता हूँ रिकॉर्ड्स में, और आई एम अ कंप्लायंट ऑर्गेनाइजेशन, so I can actually go out and raise capital from, the investors. Now things are changing. We are seeing a surge in SME IPOs. Why? Because these SMEs have realized that what scale of business they can achieve, because capital is a resource, like human resource, capital is a resource which you need for building the organization. So, coming to the difference, startups have always been raising capitals from outside, liquidating their stake. SMEs have just started doing that. So difference wise, as I said, startups, have their own way of working, and SMEs have their own way of working. But I'm a fan of SMEs. I've been working with them for years, and I really respect, the SMEs for the courage that they have, the, the risk that they take with their own money. They set up, their businesses. They grow their businesses. They create employment opportunities. Any business for that matter. I mean, even startups do that. But I would say the the fact that, a person is creating opportunity for others to earn, that is something, that is the reason why I have been working with SMEs and bringing their focus on better financial management, because if they make more money, everybody around them benefits. So, uh, I mean, coming back to the differences, I would say, every business that is new is a startup. I mean, in a common parlance, you can say. But startups that venture capitalists look at, angel investors look at, they are those startups which are innovating, doing something, using technology, creating something scalable. Uh, they are looking at those startups. Whereas there is a set of investors who would not invest in such risky, companies which are, because of the high uncertainty, they would rather go and invest in SMEs which are more stable businesses, which are profitable, and uh, you know they will back those companies more. So I think
Yeah,
that is the
rightly said, right? So, so the question to the Ankit, right? So, what are the SMEs challenge? Because I see the Ankit is the right guy, to be honest. The guy who's SME founder, right?
Basically,
Who's
SMEs.
yeah. Just to
If I talk
complete one thing, just to give
I will
you.
talk about the SMEs or the startups.
I'm telling you,
Basically, challenges are everywhere.
So Ankit is SME founder, right? And he investing into startups. Right? So that is the
So the thing is, the challenge is everywhere.
yeah.
Every business.
So I have two questions for you. Right?
while they are not able to, make that concrete team, which a founder, who is an educated founder, he invests in team and technology. वो उसका mindset नहीं है, SME का mindset नहीं है. A founder can have a ERP or a CRM software. किसी SME से पूछो कि what is ERP? नहीं पता.
They don't want to use it.
एक कहीं ना कहीं founder के दिमाग में रहता है कि I have to scale. मेरे को तो कैश बर्न करना है. SME क्या बोलता है? Firstly I have to earn, then I will earn. ये एक थोड़ा सा बड़ा एक.
सर मैं यहाँ पर डिफर करता हूँ. I mean, it is for the audience also to understand, and there's a very, it's an important point for all of us to understand, because I work both with startups and SMEs, so I have really thought about it and tried to come up with my own, you can say, logic. So in case a SME starts any business, they invest a certain amount of capital. I mean, I'm not talking the source of capital, but the money that is invested is in form of physical assets. You create a restaurant, you invest 3-4 crores. You create a factory, you can invest up to 50 crores also. You create, say a showroom. Again, there is an amount of investment that goes there. However, if suppose on day one, you decide that after investing into the infrastructure, you're not starting that business, you will not recover more than 10-20% of that amount invested, right? So that means on day one, the SME has burned 80% of the amount spent. However, for accounting terms, in accounting terms and for all understanding purposes, we see a physical asset and we say amount has been invested. Now, when it comes to a startup, they are not building any physical asset. They are building a business model using technology, team, and a considerable amount on making that solution, visually and otherwise, present to the relevant audience. That is what they spend on the marketing and branding. So now they do not have a physical factory of 50 crores, but maybe with that 50 crores, they have created a business model which is running, which has adequate customers who are paying for their services, and maybe at that level, they become profitable. So you start making profits as a SME after investing 50 crores in a factory. Maybe after 1 year, you have enough turnover, which is justifying that 50 crore investment. Similarly, for a startup which has spent 50 crores on creating that business solution, it becomes profitable at that level and start justifying that 50 crores investment. So it is, the only unfortunate part is that whatever has been spent by the startup is charged to the profit and loss account, and it shows as a cash burn. So the only problem with startups that has been, and the reason for which startups have shut down, that people started following only the top line and growth of the business, not realizing when it will become profit. अगर आप 50 करोड़ फैक्ट्री में लगा रहे हैं, आपको पता है कि मैं एक साल शायद और लॉस करूंगा, बट अगले साल से मैं प्रॉफिटेबल हो जाऊंगा. बट स्टार्टअप्स ने कभी ऐसे सोचा ही नहीं. उन्होंने कहा कि भाई हम बनाते जाते. जोमेटो लिस्ट हुआ तब भी वो लॉस मेकिंग था, बट वंस द मार्केट गेव इट बैक टू देम एंड द शेयर प्राइसेस केम crashing down, they started thinking now how we can make money. Because the customer behavior was altered and now you are ready to pay for the convenience, they started charging you and you are paying. And that is where Zomato, probably has, and cutting down on all the unnecessary expenditure which naturally builds in when you are scaling up very fast. So at a point suppose if you are buying clothes every now and then and you're filling your Almira with that, there will be a point when there will be no space and you will have to now either arrange the clothes and take out all the ones that you're not going to wear and make your Almira look more organized. It is very similar to running a company which you are scaling up very fast. You will accumulate a lot of unresourceful, unfeasible practices or, which are not good for the company over a period of time. But then at a point you have to cut down all those expenses. You have to do all that, housekeeping, I would say. So these companies have done it now, and then that is why Zomato has become profitable. Even Blinkit is becoming profitable. So all these changes are coming. So why I'm sharing this is that this aspect of, startups burning cash and SMEs, investing wisely. I mean, I just want to, contribute in my way that it is only a way of looking at it in terms of accounting, that this is called a cash burn and this is called an investment. When I give this example to any SME who, is questioning the startup side, it's not that I'm on the startup side, but I really want people to understand that this is a very basic difference, of understanding only and not the reality in terms of, so the unfortunate part has been that the startups, and it is also because of the investors, I would say, who demanded that the startup grows with that money at an astronomical pace, that the startups lost sight of गाड़ी 240 की स्पीड में चलाएंगे तो आपको विजिबल कैसे होगा कि आप कहाँ जा रहे हैं? It will be pure luck if you really, without hitting anything, you reach your destination.
But founder gives the projections like this.
Fashion, I would say, founder funding to fashion.
I would say that there was a point when people were funding startups without, I would say, demanding that whether this business model is feasible or not in the long run. It is the investor's mistake. I fully, I would say, take that, the founders, why they gave such projections mindlessly, because they were investors ready to invest in such companies. However, when the tide changed in 2021, so many unicorns, because investors were investing money left, right and center, and the companies were raising money every 3 months, and within a span of, I remember the fastest unicorn that made was within 6 months of its incorporation. In 6 months time you become a 8,000 crore company. How is it possible? Because you are raising capital every month from a larger investor who is believing in you. You are a good storyteller.
Yeah.
Because there is no fact which can support whatever you are saying. Because in 6 months time nothing can be created which can really justify.
But actually funding still as a challenge, right? In both ways, a startup, and even if we talk about startup,
Yes.
we talk about even SME.
Yeah.
So I think my opinion is that I think both has to learn from each other. SME, startup has to learn from SME, right? The way they want to put their own money, right? And they still need funds. So funding is, I think, required to any business, right? But at what extent is it required? So questions to Dr.
Sorry, I
Dr. Vassundra, so what do you think that, what challenge, how we can meet that funding challenge, or what is the, what do you think that, that we should do, a few things which can happen?
I think, as rightly said, the challenges is there everywhere. Like I think we need to find this right solution to fix up these challenges, because we talk about startups or we talk about SME, because both are having the challenges. But I'm not coming to say that SME is just growing very rapidly and they do have the capital fund and they know how to talk about the strategy, they make a proper plan and then they do it. Because a lot of SMEs which I have seen in my own eyes, because they have a very rapid growth at the time of when they started and for the next coming down the line 2 to 3 years, and after some time, a point of time, because they just burnt out their entire capital, and with that capital investment they have grown to a certain profit percentage of the company growth of the gross profit, and after certain time of 3 or 4 years they again need a capital fund to expand their the expansion of their business and for the factory or whatever it is. The few examples, like I would say that initially anyone start a company, because if it's a startup entrepreneur or startup founder, what happens basically, they have that passion and energy. What is happening, that passion and energy has to be streamlined in a proper manner. That is not there in Indians, especially with the startup founders, because second most importantly, they are thinking that okay, we have an idea, I have a concept, so if I am able to convince in my own language to the people, definitely I can able to bring at least minimum 1 crore to 3 crore from an angel investor. So I could able to convince the angel investor. So there's a very wrong perception which every startup founders is having this mindset. seeing money doesn't come so easily. Please understand. Okay, as I am sitting over here, an entrepreneur, I am running 3 companies for your kind information. I start my venture in 2018 because I had an experience of 7 years of industry experience before starting a company. Everyone needs this. Agar if you are very talented, even if you are an IIT passed out and you have an idea and you have a concept to put into it, then you should have a little backup of financial support. It is necessary. Agar if you don't have, and you don't have even a single % of support, little bit of the financial support, either from your family or from anyone, it is really difficult to start a company and to become successful as an entrepreneur. According to the reality situation, I would say maybe the luck can work out, because that's what I would say. Why the funding challenges? Why the funding challenges comes over here? Because the reason behind, many of them are just taking the funds from various sources. The startup companies, when you talk about a company which is 1-year-old company or 2-year-old company, most of the startup companies doesn't even have a balance sheet. I think we should agree on this table, please.
I don't agree with that, but
yeah,
if you're saying so,
some of them, yeah. So, second thing, and then the book of records is not, most of the time it is not matching to the, whatever the cash inflow and outflow most of the times. So the investor who is sitting here and then who is putting the money, because they would definitely think about it, okay, so when they have this kind of a book of records, how they are going to have a future projections. Because is my money is going to be safe, or am I taking a risk or something like that? Because any investor, whoever is lending out the money, because they would definitely have this challenges which is running at the back of their mind. Agar if we are having a proper book of records and then we could able to convince and then they have a proper future realistic projections, I think these challenges would be able to sort it out in a, and of course they also need, companies would need a kind of a strategical partner, not a financial partner. Because I don't think so, only the finances would help the company to grow, because of course the money is needed, but it's not that always the investment, if mere paas paisa hota to I can able to do wonders. It's just like only on saying. Can we able to prove it in actions? That is not there. That is the one thing which is lacking. So first, before approaching for any investor, I'm not talking about the private, because even a public sector, because you should have a proper plan which is already been set for yourself, and then you should work according to the action points on that. I think then these things can be sorted out in a,
Yeah. So coming back to
as
Rightly said. I think 30% of the startups, why the market asking for the funds? The company is not even registered. They don't have a balance sheet.
actually they don't have any CSS, because why these things are coming, because
it might vary because he is a CEO. So might be the companies of that particular level who's already have achieved a certain revenue, or maybe
they are having a proper records.
See, this is happening. If you look at the trends, right? Once the startups becoming popular and everybody started raising fund, हर किसी को fund मिल रहा था, right? Unicorns बनने शुरू हो गए, more than 100, right? Now what is happening is, now the people have, the investors or the community, they started moving towards the SMEs, right? Look at the trend now. They started looking at the SME, or they started looking at the startups who are going for the IPO. Right? Now everybody started funding the companies which are becoming IPO, which have intent to become IPO. Right? So even the fund is there. Right? I deny the fact that there is no fund. I would say fund is there. The only thing is the fund has not been channelized well. Right? Earlier it was putting into idea stage startups, right, which they busted just because they didn't exist, or so they couldn't scale, right? And suddenly those investors started putting into a startup which become a IPO. अभी तो ऐसा होता है कि startup which I am listening to stories, right, from other people. So I'm not particular in that sense, but I'm saying people say, "अरे IPO बनने वाला है, तो इसमें पैसा बता देते हैं." I'm telling you, this is how now the trend is moving towards कि IPO कौन बन सकता है, right? उस पे पैसा लगाते हैं. So up now again the SME IPO, what is happening, right? Again, so what had happened already with the unicorn, right? And suddenly it drops. कि अब unicorn बनने कम हो गए, right? Now the fund has moved towards कि SME IPO पे लगाते हैं. Now what is happening now currently? So I think the trend, the money is there in the market, right? People are there to fund. The only thing is that somehow those, as you just said, that SME वो इन्वेस्ट करने में पहले बहुत सारी चीजें हैं, compliances that matters, right? So I think those things are becoming a biggest challenge, right? Money is there in the market. People are interested to invest.
I would think definitely that
what do you think?
Money, of course, they would think many times because a lot of things privately as
certain investors who actually don't even look at the balance sheets or the financials. Basically, it's a fashion. Funding, angel investing is a fashion. What I'm just saying for the last 2 to 3 years.
No, but unicorn बनने में
सर सब unicorn 0.007% ही unicorn बने हैं अभी तक. 141 लाख अगर स्टार्टअप्स है ना, उसमें unicorn कितने बने हैं और कितने प्रॉफिटेबल हैं? ऐसे ही थोड़ी ना सब unicorn बन जाते हैं. 80% तो स्टार्टअप फेल होने
But now those trend SME IPO trend जो है, that is another what is happening right with the SMEs, right? Where I think I would like you to comment.
So when you say that it was a fashion to invest in startups, so it is a fashion to invest in SME IPOs these days. Those investors who have the capability and the time to evaluate a company well, they have their own opinions and they take informed decisions based on their research and their analysis. However, majority of the investing community follows these influencers or maybe somebody whom they consider as a person who can assess a company well. They would go by their opinion. So right now, if everybody is investing in SME IPOs, so that is where the entire Janta is going and investing, and that is where we see IPOs being subscribed multiple 100 times over what they were raising. So a company raising 12 crores gets a subscription of say 4,800 crores. It is only because there is a fashion of investing in SME IPOs, and that fashion was there of investing in startups a few years back, which has died down. So it is the same set of investors with the same set of ignorance and following people, other people, and trying to make quick money. Now the only thing is that if people made quick money, in one asset class, they stick to that. The moment they stop making money in that, they move to the other asset class, and that is where So it is not. I would say that everybody can have the capability and the bandwidth to evaluate businesses while investing, and that is where if you see where is all the money coming from that is getting invested in. The major portion is coming from mutual funds where people are subscribing to mutual funds and mutual funds are investing in the public markets. So, now people have realized, most of the people realize that they do not have the capability to analyze companies, and it is better to give their money to the mutual fund managers who will take informed decisions and create a certain amount of assured return for them, which is more than the FD bank rate. And that is where they make money. Very few people, I would say, who have the appetite to go and invest in the market, and others who are doing it, it is only out of, you can say, as you said, fashion. So we have to understand that so why startups have failed. So I on the same podium I yesterday explained it, but I'll quickly do it. The investing in startups gained momentum only in 2015, as I said. Before that, there was a limited number of startups, limited number of funds, and all the venture capital that was coming from outside India to be invested. All the funds that are there still, I would say, majority of the capital, the venture capital that is invested in startups comes from outside India. Domestic capital is not getting invested into India the way it should be. Why I am saying that why it should be? Because we are not ready to fund innovation in this country, because I understand there's a learning curve. So if I start from 2015, when there were companies like Oyo, became successful, it suddenly became a fashion that let's start a startup, and you could see hundreds of founders, in a room, who are willing to raise capital, and that is where when they were copying the successful models and not something which is a true innovation. And investors being inexperienced, getting excited about this new fashion, you can say, of invested huge amounts. So a lot of angel investors started investing huge amounts into startups. But these founders, who were primarily youngsters, just out of college, maybe reputed organizations also, they did not have the business sense. There was no one to mentor them. And what they did was, with this money, they spent it on themselves, they gave themselves huge salaries, and this money was gone. After 2 years, when these companies shut down, then suddenly there was a decline in the angel investing part, I would say. But after that, in 2018, when I would say the founders became wiser, the investors became wiser, I would disagree that startups which are getting funded they don't have a balance sheet or they don't have anything, because when an investor puts in money, we do a due diligence. If any company which does not have a company incorporated, how can I invest my money into it? It is not like dost ka beta hai, to beta paise le aur chala ja. We are putting money into their company. It has to be a registered entity. There has to be a certain amount of compliance that we check before putting in the money. And it is an informed decision. It is again not a random thing happening. So in 2018, the trend changed. Companies started getting funded again, I would say. And what we saw was that this time the founders were more, I would say, aware that they need to use those funds to grow the business or create the business rather than spending on their salaries. They would delay taking salaries, say for the initial 2 years or maybe 1 year, to survive with their own funds, and then when the business has reached a certain scale, start paying them maybe a nominal salary of 50,000 or whatever. And then once this started happening, the funds getting utilized for creating businesses, we saw a surge in companies being funded again, and the venture capitalists, I would say, primarily started getting confidence that now Indian founders are creating businesses with the money that is given to them. But unfortunate part was that another piece of the puzzle was missing, that when these businesses will become sustainable, profitable, the only thing that was being followed or was being sought was growth. Suddenly they should become very large companies with thousands of lakhs of customers and thousands of employees, and to reach that scale, the venture capitalists were giving endless funding. But as I mentioned earlier, if 50 crores is invested and still you are not able to arrive at a scale where you become a profitable company, so the business model might not be actually viable also. So, a famous founder said at an event in Bangalore, I said this yesterday also, that the time between 2010 till 2022, companies were getting funding from venture capitalists without having a revenue model also in place. But now, after 2022, even large VCs, they want companies which have a clear path to profitability. If you say that, okay, as a founder, I can scale this business from this point to that point, I have that vision, and for that I need this much of capital. In the total, you can say, total span of the business, but so to a point where I reach that point. But right now I need 2 crores to first take my first baby step. And that is where you take that baby step, you showcase as a founder that, okay, with this 2 crores, I have scaled the business where I thought it will scale. If I am in that process, if I realize that I have, my business idea is not up to the mark and I need to pivot, I'll pivot. And I'll create the business of that level that, yes, this 2 crores was deployed and it has created something. I go to the next level of investors and I say, now I need, say, 15 crores, 20 crores to take it to the next level. And every time I raise capital is, the time when I use that capital to prove that this business model is working and reaching a certain scale. And when it reaches that scale, that it becomes profitable, that is when, you know, the growth capital comes in, that now this business is profitable, it is doing this much of turnover and is profitable. Now, there are certain set of investors who invest in such companies only which are profitable. I'm not getting into the technicalities, but so they will invest in these companies and take this company from that level to 100x of that level with that capital. And then eventually, every investor needs an exit. So an early stage investor needs an exit. So how does that exit happen? You know, the company would raise funds from a larger investor. The larger investor would acquire the stake of the earlier investor, or the company will get acquired. And the third way is that, you know, the company goes for listing. So at an early stage when you invest, the listing is far away. But when these larger investors come in, their way of exit is IPOs only. So now what we are seeing is that there are a lot of startups which start with, you know, a vision of maybe creating a 10,000 crore company, but when they hit say 50 crores, 100 crores, they see that challenge that you say that, you know, after a certain point, they are not able to scale the company. Each founder is not capable of creating a unicorn, but they are able to create a business which is doing 50 crores, 100 crores, and it is profitable at that level. Now to create an exit for the investors, either that business earns that much of profit that they can, you know, repay the investors by buying back the shares, or they go for listing. So that is where what we are witnessing is a lot of startups becoming profitable at a certain scale are opting for going for SME IPOs or, you know, startup IPOs. And this entire process of startups, you know, creating that enterprise value has encouraged SMEs, you know, over the last, you know, 5-7 years, that they have also become aware that, okay, enterprise value nanki bhi koi cheez hai. So now they are open to dilute their, you know, holding of the business. They have understood it is better to be, you know, holding 50% of a 1,000 crore company than holding 100% of a 50 crore company. That is where they have become open to the idea, taking inspiration from startups. So I would say if startups have not done that well, but I really give credit to them to open the eyes of the SME sector in terms of, you know, they unlocking their enterprise value. Not for the purpose of raising capital. Raising capital is arranging a resource that is required for money. But that way of raising capital was not open to the SMEs, which is open now. There are wrongdoers in each category. There were startups which were wrongdoers. There are SMEs which are wrongdoers. But overall, if I see the idea of arranging capital from the market, you know, that has opened up for the SMEs, and that is what is leading to this large number of SME IPOs, because more and more SMEs are coming forward and raising capital now from the market. And I would say this is the right direction. People doing wrong things eventually, you know, will get caught by the regulators. They will pay the price of doing wrong things, and, you know, checks and balances will be put in place that when, you know, SMEs are raising money, they are not doing any wrong thing, I would say. And the confidence of investors of investing in SMEs will go up only as we see. So the SME IPOs, I would say, are a way forward, not only for SMEs, it is also for startups which turn into SMEs at a certain scale. So this is where this, in my opinion, the ecosystem is going. The investors are becoming aware, more aware. You know, from our 2015 time when investors gave the money and didn't know how to do a follow-up in terms of MIS, financial MIS, and to look to review where the business is going, to a point where investors are working very closely with these founders and guiding them, helping them, and also monitoring them very closely, because their money is invested in them. And the founders also realize, you know, not like the 2015 founders who were paying themselves, they are realizing that they need to create value with this. And that is where, you know, this entire ecosystem is maturing, and we will see more and more of, you know, domestic capital getting invested into domestic businesses, which will fuel their growth. I mean, I always say that, you know, I went to Northeast with the Startup India team, and I saw that there were 500 founders sitting in the room, and not even a single investor from that local community. So I said that, how will these startups, really scale up till the time the local community shows confidence into them. Because they know them personally, they have that confidence. For me to invest in a Northeast venture is very difficult, because for me to monitor it becomes very difficult, because for me to go there and review and do all that, there is a cost to it. But if there is a local investor invested, a local angel investor invested, he can really help me monitor that startup. So I actually have been talking to the various government agencies, that where is the initiative that we educate the local investor to invest in the local companies. I see that trend picking up, and it is I would say it is a positive change, but it is going to take a lot of time, and we see a lot of domestic capital coming into startups and SMEs. So this is my opinion about the entire thing. Maybe I might be wrong at certain points, but this is my experience.
Yeah, rightly said. So I'm taking your words right. SME is becoming wiser, right? So the questions goes to Ankit. So as you just said that a lot of money required to burn it, right? So at a ground level, right, when we talk about a real धंधा ground वाला, ठीक है ना, उसकी बात करने जा रहा हूँ, जिसमें फंड चाहिए तो चाहिए, right? Because आपका 30 to 90 days का वैसे क्रेडिट होने वाला है, right? तो क्रेडिट मतलब if you need to go to a bigger client, तो 90 दिन का मांगेगा कि मुझे जो है सामान तो अभी चाहिए, but 90 days का क्रेडिट लगेगा. So what are those kind of challenges, right, at a ground level with the SME जहाँ पे उनको हमेशा फंड चाहिए?
फंडिंग चैलेंज तो रहते ही रहते हैं.
Is it because of that credit? कभी आपको बड़े क्लाइंट मिलते हैं?
Basically, what we see is in Indian economy, you can divide it into 50% cash and 50% credit. Especially जो हम लोग की नॉर्थ इंडियन कम्युनिटी है ना, this is more into credit. You can say the proportionate ratio is more than 70% credit, 30% cash. And you go to south, they're basically reciprocated. तो वहाँ पे 30% cash, 30% credit, 70% cash. ये वर्ल्ड वाइड एक पैरेलल इकोनॉमी.
Because of this cash, do you think that that makes a bottleneck for the NASC?
If your 70% is involved in the business as a credit funds, because that cycle is basically of 60 days or maybe 90 days or maybe 120 days depending on the distribution. So for that credit, either you can take the government schemes, you can take various government schemes, or you can take unsecured loan. अब कई बार क्या होता है कि unsecured loan आप ले लेते हैं, but आपका जो rate of interest है, that is might be higher than your EBITDA or your profit margins. Mostly SMEs, they are into B2B. B2C वाले तो startups हैं. They know how to manage that B2C to startup. वो issue तो देखिए रहेगा.
So what were the sources of funding to the SMEs which has these kind of?
I think the best is to go with government funds if you're not getting any venture capitalist or any of the angel investor funding. To best go for the CGTs. Although there are around 15 government schemes, technology की अलग है. आपकी प्रधानमंत्री योजना स्कीम करके स्माइल स्कीम है, that's for SC, ST. They are basically 15 schemes. We have to value which is the best scheme. Proper expert should be hired, or basically professional should be hired to basically explain regarding which scheme is best for your business. I think that is the right way to answer your question. And the second way is to go for an angel fund, or because VC fund की बहुत बात वाली स्टेज है. एंजल इन्वेस्टर भी समझदार होते हैं. वो भी आपका वो कहते हैं कि मेरे को फाइनेंशियल प्रोजेक्शन नहीं चाहिए. What you are earning right now, we want. पहले क्या होता था, स्टार्टअप ऐसे आते थे, कहते थे सर हम 2 साल में इतना कमाते थे. हम मुझे पूछते थे आज कितना कमा रहा है, आज रेवेन्यू, आज प्रॉफिट, फ्यूचर तो उसी लेवल. Basically schemes, government schemes, I think is the best.
Yeah, so currently government is supporting SMEs even if that is not being funded by VCs or so why those questions to Dr. Vassundra, why those SMEs which is easily being funded by the government, right, as you just said, CGMST scheme, right? So why VC is not able to fund those kind of SMEs? What are the reasons?
I am a venture partner with one of the venture capitalist company because we know the challenges why we are not able to do it. Sorry to say because I have to accept this fact here, as rightly you said, sir, a lot of the VC venture capitalist companies are funding more internationally global companies, but they are not doing it in domestic, actually speaking, because the one thing is they're not supporting the startups of the innovative ideas, because that's what which he was talking about, because they have a thinking that if we are doing the funding for these kind of companies, whether are we going to able to justify to our investors that they would be able to get their returns. ROIs on the proper particular duration which has been mentioned in the agreement or not. This is one thing which I would say. Even we have a venture capitalist company which is called Katyavar Ventures Private Limited, and we also have another company called iCasper Incorporation. iCasper Incorporation is somewhere around 15-year-old company, and we based out in Ahmedabad. Most of our funding which starts from somewhere around $1 million and goes beyond the capex value, and all this funding which has been done in the last 10 years, fiscal years, because most of the companies are larger companies. Sorry to say this one. So I myself accepted this one, and we seen the balance sheets, and we seen all the book of records. We seen the proper companies statements, and then we have done this investments, and we raised the funds actually in the last 10 years. And when you talk about the Katyavar Ventures, we majorly concentrating right now on the startup companies. That's what which I am coming to say. We started this VC in the year of 2022 actually. This is a subsidiary company of iCasper, and we are predominantly open this one only for the startup companies to fund, because we don't want it to go for the larger companies to fund, because they do also already having a capital funds to continue their revenue growth of the company or the business expansion, because we don't want it to concentrate on that. We majorly looking out for the startup companies in India especially, wherein in Katyavar we are trying to raise for the companies like 2 crore to 5 crores, and then somebody who needs around starts just only with the 1 crore of the investment, and then they would have a proper strategy in place. So these kind of companies we started helping. But how many Katyavar ventures are there when VC companies in India? That is a one question mark which we need to do the survey on that. Because not all the people or all the venture capitalists are thinking that of course we should do some investments and funding, we need to do it for the domestic companies, not for the larger companies or in international. That is one thing. Public sector, of course, when you talk about government sector, they have this PMKY, the schemes, and then you also have in Startup India schemes in MSMEs where they give 10 lakhs. This is a minimum amount of starting with when you register it, and you also need to go through the KYC is actually the scheme, and you have to submit certain documents of your Ministry of Corporate Affairs or for the startup companies. They immediately release you the 10 lakh rupees or something like that. So public sector normally does funding huge volume to the startup companies, because the reason behind, end of the day they wanted to show the development of the company's economic growth, that is GDP growth, because they want this has to reach to the global market. If the companies which is larger, who is doing at least even a SME who is 100 crores or 200 crores of turnover, the public sector is not giving funding for those companies, because they already have it. Because even if they have or doesn't have, it doesn't mean that they need to give it to those companies, because they are self-sufficient in running up on themselves, because they doesn't require, but they might require after certain milestone. But that they are getting it from the VC or some angel investors, they are any which ways they are getting it, and it is going on an autonomous body, and those kind of companies. But startup companies majorly the government is giving funding, because the reason behind they had to grow, because that is from the scratch, because they need fund, because that spectrum and that area has been majorly focused from the public sector because of this is the reason. I think maybe anyone would like to agree or disagree, I'm not sure. But I think this is the major reason of that.
Yeah, I understand, right? So I think some of the point I think we have already quoted from your discussion. And so I think we are trying to have one last question, right, just to wrap up this. So how do you think that, I think one by one, I think we will try to see. So there's a trend, right, that SME, and a startup, right, there's a lot of funding and, they are becoming advisors, right? They are becoming advisors, now startup is becoming advisors and they had to comply with the, all the, regulatory stuff, right? And SME is also becoming now going to the IPOs. They want to have all compliances in intact, right? So they are becoming wiser. So on the trend, so what do you think that another 5 years, right? Another 10 years, right? So this questions for everybody. What do you think that startup or SMEs, how he is business, he is in the business, right? Making a new startup or growing it or getting it funded, like would come into play other kind of years. What do you see that how we are growing that?
So because there are different types of businesses, startups are different and SMEs are different, so I'll address them separately. So startups, they need to have very clear, profitable, sustainable business models. They should know at what level they will become profitable. That understanding, generally SMEs have when they are putting money into the infrastructure. That okay, if I put 10 crores initially in the infrastructure, I will be profitable from year 2. So that path to profitability is very clear for SME, which was primarily missing for the startups. So that clarity if the startups have. So you are building a business which is innovative, which is using technology, which is scalable, but along with that you should know when it will become profitable. And if you are not able to raise any further funds, the business should sustain at that level and generate enough profit for it to go on like any other SME activity. So that is for the startups. There are VCs who are willing to put money, but they want this clarity from the startups now, which was earlier not demanded, but now there is a shift. So for the startups to raise funds, they should have all this. For the SMEs, unfortunately, SMEs have been manipulating their books. They have been showing lower profits because they never wanted to pay taxes. So they have to become more compliant. They have to have the correct profit being reported. Whether it is a 10 crore profit on a 50 crore turnover, then you need to report 10 crores if you really want any investor to participate. I'm not talking about valuations or anything. If I am to put money into your business and I know you're taking out cash, I will never put a penny into your business. So if you really want that capital for growing your business from level A to level B, you need to first become eligible to, raise that capital, and that eligibility would come with proper corporate governance, proper compliances, and a true picture of the business where you are inviting someone to own a part of your business. If you're creating value, it is the same value that you're creating for that person, obviously in percentage of the holding of that business, that you're doing it for yourself. If you are making money at cost of the investor, then your game is not very long term, it is a short term. You might make a lot of money, but then maybe you will not be able to create an organization which you can be proud of, because at the end of the day you just made money and the organization is no more because of whatever reasons.
So do you think that the number of percentage of the startup shutting down would reduce in the coming future?
So I would say definitely, because if not everybody is starting a business in a very random way of just trying to build something and thinking that okay, I will get the requisite capital and I'll try it out. Rather, if you are taking a very informed decision and building a business, obviously the percentage would come down. So when we say 80% of the startups shut down, it is primarily because out of that 80%, 60% would have never been funded. And why they are not funded? One, their business idea might not be great. Second, the founder might not be that capable. You know, I have seen founders who are very, very technically sound, but they are not able to even articulate the problem that they are trying to solve. And that is a capability issue. If you are not able to articulate कि मैं problem क्या solve कर रहा हूँ, तो आप investor से कैसे expect करोगे कि वो आपके venture में पैसा लगाए? So 60% out of that 80%, or even I would say 90% startup shut down. 60% do not get funded. So if you see the percentage of startups getting shut down after getting started, the major, portion is because they never get funded. So if you do not get the resource that is required, why they do not get the resource? Because banks will never fund a loss-making company. They will not fund a company which is investing in tech, people and marketing. They will invest in a company, give 25 crores of loan of a 35 crore investment or 40 crore investment into plant and machinery. Because there is a physical asset which they believe will fetch that 25 crores. But if the founder decides, as I said, not to run the business, it will not fetch that 25 crores. That is why they need the collaterals in form of land, building, etc.
Yeah, I just want to add this point. So that's what we call it as like a technocrat becomes a businessman. So these things happen sometimes, because a technical person, so when he or she becomes a businessman or woman, very least percentage of the people are successful into that because they know the ability to how to convert. If I have an X amount of investment, I know how to make it like 10x of that money, like this, But every technical person is not successful when they start up some companies and they start getting the funds because they are failing to get the funds to grow. That's
the point. So the question was, address that because the focus is not to make 10x of the investor's money. It is about creating a great business which is of a certain value. So our focus should be creating a great business. Now the point is that many times, as I said, people are very technically good, but they might not be very good business people.
That's what I would like to say. They need
what we see, right? That was the question. What we see in another 5 or 10 years? What is going to happen in India? Why they can say, like, unicorns, SME IPOs, what is next? So what do you see? That number of startup will reduce and percentage of the successful startup will reduce. So what is going to happen? I need maybe a combined answer.
I think what we feel is the sustainability.
Sustainability.
Already conveyed by Mr. Prashant. Most of the startups, most of the unicorns will try to sustain the business because of the global competition. And already most of the global startups are into AI. There's an era of AI.
Yes.
Yesterday in the presentation, I think Mr. Gentleman over here gave a very good rethink AI. He gave a very good presentation. I was there yesterday. He gave a very good presentation on AI, blockchain, and IoT. Basically, AI is the future. And as far as the commodity or the service industry is concerned, globally business will try to sustain because of this competition. And no doubt technology will play a major role. No doubt because of this AI.
So I think we can conclude with the saying that the future would be the sustainable SMEs, right, and sustainable businesses coming into play, and the percentage of the shutdown would be reduced because everybody is becoming kind of.
To everyone, don't create a business, create a value for the business.
Thanks. I think it was a great session with you, right? I think that is the last that we have discussed. Right? Thank you.
Thank you.
Can you round of applause for the and may I please request Mr. Nitin to come up on the stage and give the mementos.